And so now I'm going to introduce Kristy Holt to speak to us for 15 minutes. Kristy is a birth mother who has experienced the family court process firsthand. She now works as a trainer with prospective adopters, adoption and fostering panels, and professionals involved in adoption. And as she says in her autobiography, her two older children were adopted in 2006, and she's since raised her third child, who was born shortly afterwards without any social service involvement. It's really good of you to attend this forum, Kristy, and we look forward to hearing from you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. So thank you for having me. My name is Kristy Holt, and I am going to share my perspectives as a birth mother who has experienced the family court system firsthand. In 2005, at the age of 19, my two children were removed and later adopted on the basis of a likelihood of emotional harm. Just 8 months after that final hearing, I gave birth to my son with the same partner, who was also the source of abuse in my life at that time. Unlike my previous experience, I was able to keep and raise my son, and he is now 19 years old. So for 16 years, I navigated life as a parent while carrying unresolved trauma and without the support that I needed. During that time, I was raising my son while also living with the long-term impact of my earlier experience of the system. It wasn't until I connected with a charity called PAC UK that I finally received the understanding and support that had been missing for so long. They have been a lifeline for me. My experience is not just about what happened, but about how it was understood, recorded, and communicated. It reflects wider issues within the system around language, context, and whose voice is truly heard. Today, I speak not only as a mother, but as a lived experience advocate. I now share my story publicly to highlight the need for greater understanding and meaningful, systematic change within the family court process, amongst other things. I'm now going to go into the presentation. A little bit of an introduction. So care proceedings are highly traumatic for parents. If they're not already in trauma before they've got to the court process, when they're in it, they are definitely in trauma. They often face fear, grief, and confusion. They have little understanding of what is actually going on. At the same time, they must navigate complex legal systems with, again, little understanding, and professional language can make participation really difficult. And I call that the court jargon. Next slide, please, Chris. So power imbalance in court processes. Many parents report feeling unheard, misrepresented, judged without the full context, overwhelmed by professional jargon, unable to challenge inaccuracies. One of the biggest things that I experienced was the imbalance of power within the process. Professionals hold the authority in their roles, their language, and in the reports that are written. As a parent, I did not feel like I had the same voice or ability to challenge what was being said. Decisions felt like they were being made about me rather than with me, and that made it very difficult to feel heard or understood. Next slide, please. So, barrier of professional language, common terms that are used in reports: limited insight, non-engagement, emotional dysregulation. Concerns remain regarding capacity to parent, but parents often do not know what is being alleged, what evidence exists, or what they actually need to do. I also found that the language used throughout the process was a huge barrier. A lot of professional terminology and jargon was used, and I didn't always fully understand what was being said or written about me. Even when I tried to engage, it was hard to feel confident when I didn't fully understand the language being used, but those same words were used to make important decisions about me and my family. Next slide, please. So trauma and communication. Parents in proceedings may be survivors of domestic abuse like me, experience poverty or instability, managing mental health difficulties, grieving separation from the child, and trauma affects memory, communication, and decision making. At the time, I was living with trauma and in a very abusive relationship that had a direct impact on how I communicated, how I presented, and how I responded to professionals. But that wasn't always recognised. What might have looked like disengagement or lack of cooperation was often fear, confusion, or being really overwhelmed. I needed understanding, but often what I experienced instead was a lot of judgment. Next slide, please. So when interpretation becomes distortion, so a bit of an example on me and a report that was done on me, I was a mother with a broken jaw, and I was described in a report that was used in the courts as appearing under the influence of drugs. There was no evidence of substance use. I was asked to go on a voluntary drug test, which I did openly, and that drug test came back negative. There was a medical explanation of how I was, presenting myself at the door. As I said, it was a broken jaw. I had a speech impediment as well. There was missing context that created a misleading narrative. So this report is in my file, and I have just recently been through my files. And just to quote on it basically says that Kristy came to the door and it looked like she was under the influence. What it does not say in that report is that, in fact, Kristy went for a drug test and it came back negative. It also doesn't mention that I had a broken jaw from my abuser. Another key issue was how that information was interpreted and recorded. Observations were written in reports in a way that didn't always reflect the full reality of what was happening. Once something is written down, it becomes part of your story on paper, and that stays with you forever. Even if it's missing context, even if it's missing context or doesn't fully reflect the situation. Next slide, please. So why context matter? Why context matters? Reports should include medical explanations, trauma history, positive actions by parents, because we do positive things as well. Environmental pressures, support offered or not offered. Without context, records can follow families for years. For me, context was really important, but it was often missing. There's a lot of gaps in my files and the recordings kept of me. I was in an abusive relationship, and that affected every part of my life at that time, but that wasn't always fully understood or reflected in how I was assessed. Without context, it's easy to make assumptions, but those assumptions can lead to decisions that don't reflect the full picture. Next slide, please. So missing strengths in case files, parents often report files include risks and allegations, but rarely include achievements, progress made, positive parenting moments, and children deserve a balanced record of their family history. I also feel that my strengths, they weren't recognised in the way that they should have been. After everything that happened, I went on to raise my son. And like I said, he is 19 now, but he's also had to carry my trauma, which was never his to carry. There was never any support. This baby was left with me in trauma. That shows resilience, though. It shows capability, and it shows that I had the ability to parent. But those strengths weren't visible or acknowledged earlier in the process. Next slide, please. So the need for advocacy support. Parents need independent support to translate support reports into plain language, understand allegations and expectations. What are we asking of them? Challenge inaccuracies. So when I speak about the report on me and a broken jaw, I never got questioned on that. I never had a chance to put that right. Attending meetings with them, I always felt like a goldfish in a goldfish bowl. All these professionals looking in on me, but not one of them was there to support me. And ensuring that the voices are heard. I just feel like my voice was never really heard. for 16 years, I had no support. I was raising my son whilst living with unresolved trauma, and from my earlier experiences, there was no ongoing help or understanding. It wasn't until I found PAC UK that I finally felt heard and supported. That support was life-changing. In fact, it was a lifeline. Support like that should be there from the beginning, not years down the line. And at times, yeah, like I said, I was the goldfish in the bowl. Everybody looking in on me. Next slide, please. So a few key recommendations from me to use plain language, some summarizes in reports, clear distinction between facts and opinion. To give the full 360 context recording, my file is full of gaps, full of information that would have been critical for my children to know. Really positive information as well. I'm not talking about negative, but that wasn't there. Balanced reporting, including strengths, independent parent advocacy, trauma-informed training for professionals, accurate records today shape the history of children tomorrow. So based on my experience, we just need clear and more accessible language, a better understanding of trauma and how it affects communication, making sure context is fully considered, recognizing strengths, not just risks, and providing early ongoing support. These are small changes, but they have a huge impact on how families can experience the system. And the last slide, please. So my experience is just one story, but it reflects wider issues that many families face. Behind every report is a real person, a real family, and a real life. My hopes from today is that all professionals share my story and encourage better development within family courts. As professionals, you will have a duty to make the difference. Please feel free to contact me if you would like any further discussions about today or any training I might be able to offer. And thank you for being here and taking the time to hear my reflections of the family courts and letting me use my voice. Thank you.